Hey everybody, Danny J here on the DJB Productions Network for Capes Not Included. Hit that subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell. Make sure you leave some comments and also share the channel. Make sure you're telling everybody about this channel and the shows and everything like that. We love having you guys on here. We love hearing from you. So definitely leave some comments. It helps with all the searching and stuff like that, and the algorithms and all. So you guys are in store for a great show today. Capes Not Included. We're going to be talking about the Disney Plus series of Star Wars. So in other words, The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to talk about these shows in depth. We're going to talk about our comparison to the movies, what we like, what we didn't like, etc., that type of thing. So of course, we're going to want to hear from everybody and say, hey, like I agree. I don't agree. Let us know what you want. Go in those comments and make sure you tell us what exactly you're thinking. Are we on the mark? Are we not on the mark, etc. But man, what a ride we had. Let's get into who we have on the panel today, though. First, let's bring up, once again, he is one of those guys who just sucks the life right out of you. Let's talk to Jason Leach, everybody.
What's up,
Jason
good
Leach
people?
here. With
Got
Grogu on his
hanging with
shoulder.
me.
He's hanging out. Jason Leach coming on the show. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. And then,
Yep.
of course, the other guy that I got on here, this guy's on every damn show I have on this channel. Let's go to Matt Sutter.
Morning, gentlemen. How's it going?
Everybody loves Matt Sutter. He's fresh back from Alaska
Oh yeah,
with the Boy
America's last
Scouts and the
frontier,
vampires.
baby.
Yes, with the Boy Scouts and the vampires. It was a lovely, lovely time. And what a great thing here. Guys, we're talking the Disney Plus series. We're talking about The Mandalorian. We're talking about Book of Boba Fett. We're talking about Obi-Wan. Now, understand, let's go back a little bit. And we want to compare these to the movies, of course. We are all fans of the first 6 episodes of Star Wars, from Phantom Menace all the way up through Return of the Jedi. Now, Phantom Menace, I have to include it because it's the first one. I don't know if I necessarily call that one of my favorites in there, but it gives us that prequel. It gives us that lead up to the shows that we watched as children, and it gave us a complete story. Okay, so now you fast forward a number of years, and we're getting new movies. We're getting The Force Awakens. We're getting what was the
The
second one
Last Jedi.
after
The
that?
Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, and then Rise of Skywalker, right? So we have a whole bunch of new characters in those movies. We have movies that aren't necessarily George Lucas. You know what I mean? To me personally, all right. To me personally, it didn't have that George Lucas feel in those movies, but everything
Right.
was familiar. We got to see some like cool throwbacks to stuff, but all brand new characters. Now, of course, anybody in our age group, we don't like change, so we don't want to hear about these new characters and stuff like that. But
Right.
hey, it's what it is. So then with Force Awakens, and then we had Rogue One, which was a great movie.
Yeah,
By the way,
Rogue One, I thought was absolutely fantastic.
they snuck that
absolutely.
son of a bitch. They snuck that son of a bitch in there. And let me tell you something. What a great movie. And I think Rogue One, out of the three, now granted that's a fourth movie, but uh, not in episode format. But Rogue One, I think, was better than 7, 8, and 9. Would you
Absolutely.
agree? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I
so.
would
yeah,
completely agree.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
It
honestly
it
think
had
so.
it had that Lucas feel to it, you
It
know.
did. It
Yeah.
truly did.
And I think that one of the things that maybe truly helped it is the fact that it was
Yeah.
filling in that gap between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. You
Yeah.
know, because it takes us literally right into the start of A New Hope,
Yeah.
and there was enough. I think the advantage it had is there was enough backstory built into A New Hope that
Yeah.
you could build off of what was already kind of hinted
Right.
at and spoken about in A New Hope, and you could build
Right.
off of that. You already had a nucleus to
Yeah.
work off of. So
And a lot of people don't realize, because the movies are so dominant. But I mean, there's comic books, there's graphic novels
Hmm.
for Star
Yeah.
Wars. So there are characters that are already established that a lot of people don't know about, that a lot of people don't realize exist, and there's stories, untold stories per se, that visually we have not seen. So they have a lot to go on if they want to expand on the Star Wars universe. Okay, so with that being said, I mean, I was kind of let down with the Force Awakens. I thought it was decent. I think I was okay, but I didn't have that George Lucas feel. It's only I think it's my only complaint about it was that it didn't have that George Lucas feel. Um, the Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker.
It was a
Uh,
hot mess. It
yeah,
was
it
a
was.
hot
It was.
mess.
It really, really was.
Hmm.
It was an arc in itself, but you have Kylo Ren, who is just like this jerk off emo son of Leia and fucking Han.
Hmm.
Okay, I was not into him as the bad guy.
Mm.
Right, he was not his grandfather at all. He did Han dirty.
Yeah,
I mean, um, although that was an epic
that was an epic
step.
moment.
That was an epic
Yeah.
moment in Star Wars
Yeah,
to
I
see
mean,
to see
especially you're
beloved Han
figuring,
go. Yeah,
yeah, which I mean, and especially the way they did it, because it's
yeah,
kind of like you're it's leading up to it's kind of like I want to leave the dark side. I want to get out from under Snoke, and I just don't know how to do it. And ultimately, it's
right.
like, no, I got to kill you, and I just don't know if I can because you
Yeah.
are my
Yeah,
father, but it has to be done for me to gain that power. I mean, it was I think a valiant effort to
hmm
kind of connect him to Vader because when you look at Vader,
yeah,
Vader goes to the dark side. He goes the wrong way for the right reasons. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
his whole thing was he was trying to save his wife and his unborn. At that point, he just figured single child. You know, and here he sees that which is why he prevented. I don't think he meant to fully go dark. You know, I think his
right.
whole intention was more or less to keep Palpatine alive so he could kind of, get some knowledge out of him, which is why, he keeps Windu from killing him. But in order to do that, then he's got to go full dark. It's just, there's
Yeah,
no other choice. And he, boom, makes that leap.
Yeah.
he killed kids, Matt. Matt, he
I
killed
know. I
younglings.
know. Once he made that leap, then it was like it was all over.
He jumped
But
the shark.
it was. I think it
My
was. I think it was. I think it was great because it was like he's trying to walk that razor's edge, and at one point, once you fall off it, it's forget about it. Now you're dark, and it's over. And
That's it.
then he just goes.
That's it.
Now he's full Vader. Now he's full Vader. He's
Yeah,
killing younglings, and it's like But it was
yeah,
great because I mean, it really showed and set really up for made good sense for Luke sensing good in him, in
yeah.
the original trilogy, because
And
again, it was his intentions were good. He wasn't trying to go
yes,
dark, but
right.
he just boom, he fell into it.
Now the funny thing you say this, and we're actually going to recircle back to this because this
Mhm.
actually comes up in the Disney Plus series, at
Yes.
least not in your specific terms, but
Hmm.
in a way that what you're talking about legit like comes up in Obi-Wan Kenobi, the
Yeah.
Disney Plus series. So we're going to recircle back to that.
Yeah.
But let's jump into the
And a
Disney
warning
Plus
for folks:
series.
there may be spoilers here.
There's definitely going to be spoilers here because we watched it all. Matt watched most of everything, but he's getting spoiled too. So just letting you know.
Before we switch over, can I say something about this sequel trilogy? I thought
Absolutely.
I thought Force Awakens was going to be a good setup for
Yeah.
this new trilogy. I don't think they had the whole thing mapped out because
No. No.
they pretty much told you that Rey was Luke's daughter. Because
hmm
she went to go find the lightsaber in Maz's castle, and she said, "Oh,
Yeah.
this was Luke's, and then it was his father before him, and now it calls to you." She pretty much said, "You are a Skywalker."
Right.
And then I also took that scene with Han and Kylo Ren to be
Yeah.
ominous. Like it could have been Han Solo wanted his son to
Yeah.
see the right path, that he turned the lightsaber on himself and Han killed himself. They could have twisted it either way. Then when you get to Last Jedi and like the opening scene, Luke gets the lightsaber from Rey and he goes, bah, he throws it over his shoulder. I'm like, they just fucked it up, you know.
Yeah.
Then when you get to the Rise of Skywalker,
Yeah.
and you see that Palpatine is alive, what that does, it negates everything that Luke and Anakin / Darth Vader did in the past, because
Yeah.
that evil is still there, you know. So it just cheapened Return of the Jedi.
But you
And
also get that it wasn't, and forgive me because it was a train wreck, and I was
Yeah.
trying to follow everything. But wasn't it that she ended up being Palpatine's daughter?
Yes,
Yes.
granddaughter.
Granddaughter, rather, yeah. So now you know she's not even a fucking Skywalker.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
She's tied
Yeah,
to
so
the
it
bad
was-
guy in a sense, but like, you know, but
Well,
like,
and I
her
unfortunately,
character was taking me and leaving me at the same time.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, I think there was stuff in like expanded universe and in some of the graphic novels and everything else that
Mhm.
kind of sets up the whole thing with the Sith being, you know, doing cloning and doing
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
their, you know, nonsense. All that. But the thing that really bothered me with it, I think you had too many people involved. You didn't have the same directors going through. You know what I mean? It was you had all these different
Yeah.
people with a different vision versus one director and say, this is where we are. And this is how we're going through, that you had with the original trilogy. And I
Exactly.
think even with the
Yeah.
prequels, you start
Exactly.
bringing, you know, this guy does this, and everybody's got their own different vision. Well, that's great if you're doing a standalone movie, you know, a side project, an origins type movie, kind of like Solo. You can do that, but not when
Yeah.
you've already now started a storyline. You need that
Right.
consistency, and that's what they were lacking. It seemed like everybody was just kind of throwing their hat in the ring, throwing ideas in, and it was like it's going here, then it's going here,
Right.
then it's coming back
Yeah.
over, and it's doing this,
And
and
you
it's
know
like,
what, too? There was a lot of
it's just a
fan
mess.
service. If you noticed, there was a
yeah,
lot of fan service
Yeah.
with that because I mean, J.J. Abrams was involved. Big fan of Star Wars. Okay,
mhm,
great work from him. But you know, like once again, like you know, this is his interpretation
yeah,
Right.
versus everybody else. Um, and then the Solo I thought was a decent movie.
Yeah, it was
I
decent.
enjoyed it.
It was fun.
It was a
But I
popcorn
think,
movie.
yeah, I think everybody just said, like, even Disney, hey, we put the name Star Wars on it, it's going to make $1 billion. But it's not always like
Mhm.
that.
And it's not.
You know, as long as we got
It's not.
a fun movie, I was entertained for 2 hours. I've watched it
yeah.
4 or 5 times. I liked it a lot.
hmm I like how it
Right.
kind
And
of
you know,
decided to go ahead and retcon the whole thing of, you know, Han, you know, in A New Hope, saying, you know, did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, which is a
Yeah.
unit of measure and not time, where it was
Right.
like, okay, now it made sense because he didn't go through the established,
Right.
safe route. You know, he took a
Yeah.
shortcut through, through the mall, and it was like, yeah, I did
yeah.
that. You know, it
Yeah.
really, and it kind of made that accomplishment even mean that much more, because it was like, you pansies, you're all going the safe way. I went,
Yeah.
screw it, I'm going straight to hell. You know,
Right.
Right. Exactly. But
Yeah.
but like I said, now
but yeah, it was
once
a good
again
movie.
jumping over to the Disney Plus series, we start with the Mandalorian, and you know, not being someone that read the graphic novels or anything like that. Uh, I see the Mandalorian. I'm like, oh, it's a Boba Fett show. That's the first thing I thought because I don't know the depth of the characters and stuff like that, right? So I'm like, it'd be kind of cool. He was always like one of my favorite action figures. You know,
Yeah.
he was that Darth Vader looking guy
Yeah,
with a rocket pack and a rocket on his wrist. I was like, yeah, he's cool looking. You
yeah,
know, he's a bounty hunter. I'm like, I like
very
that. You know, whatever.
mysterious. You know,
Yeah. So, and we get that. And first off, hats off to and I forget his name. He's such a great actor that plays Mando. Um,
Oh,
Pedro
Pedro
something.
Pascal.
Pedro
Pascal, yeah.
Pascal. Yeah. Hated him in. I liked him, but I hated him in Wonder Woman '84 because the movie stunk. But he's just such a great actor, and his voice is just perfect for Mando.
Yeah.
Um, I love that it was like a space western, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Star Wars. It's Star Wars, but you know what? We're not going to really overplay the Star Wars part. We're not going to talk about the Empire and the rebellion, and we're not going to talk about this, that, and the other
Mhm.
thing. This is just life on this planet and that planet and stuff like that. And because there are other things happening other than this big giant war.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
And
the
I
fact too,
love that because I was like, yeah,
it takes place after Return of the Jedi.
which I
So
did
it's
not
in
know
those
until the end of season two. I did not
really.
know that until the end of season
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah,
But see,
when
it
I
was
saw
good
Luke
though
come in, I'm
because
like,
too,
wait,
it
wait,
just
what's happening?
yeah, but which was good though too because as you said, it kind of removed,
Mhm.
it made it
Yeah,
its own entity. It had its own
yeah,
identity.
Yeah.
it did.
And it didn't
Yeah, it
rely.
wasn't sucked up into this larger universe, etc.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it didn't rely on established characters. It did
Hmm.
its own thing, and it
Yeah.
worked because the writing was amazing,
And
and the visuals were
and
great
here's
too.
the funny thing. Now you made a good point there. It didn't rely on established characters. In a sense, neither did the Force Awakens. But we didn't like necessarily these characters we got in Force Awakens in comparison to all these
Yeah,
characters we got in The Mandalorian. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
once again, now that's a John Favreau who just is phenomenal
yeah,
in background stuff. But like, and once again, a fan of Star Wars. But here's something like you said, where I got that Star Wars feel out of
Yeah.
The
yeah.
Mandalorian, even though it wasn't a war or anything like that. I got that feel from that show. The action
Because
was
they get
there.
it.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They really do. And like I said, I'm a fan of westerns, and that was a space western. You know,
Absolutely.
I have friends that tell me, "Oh, well, the Mandalorian. Only problem with that is that every episode was the same episode, just a different person." And I'm like, "Well, so was the Incredible Hulk, which was a great series in the '70s. So
Mhm.
was like the A
Yeah,
Team, which is a great
yeah,
series in the '80s. I mean, so
Yeah.
that formula is not new. You know what I
No.
mean? And something like that, and it's not necessarily lazy either, but there is a subplot that we're following along with his adventures each week.
Yeah.
And if you compare that to, say, for example, if you compare that to like the CWs like The Flash, okay, each season they have a big bad. And the whole season is these guys fighting the big bad, right? Rather than these individual fights and that's happening in the background. You don't get that. So I think if the big bad sucks in the beginning, your whole season's shot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If your perception of the
yeah,
big bad, oh, I really don't give a shit about this guy, and whether they catch him or
yeah,
don't catch him or whatever, then your whole season's shot. Whereas if it's in the background and they're doing something, but meanwhile each week I'm getting a different bad guy, blah 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 blah. That's what I like, and that's what I liked about the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian gave us a different adventure every single week.
Yeah.
It showed us Mando's tenacity. It showed us his conviction. It showed
Hmm.
us his loyalty to being a Mandalorian and to Mandalore itself. It also showed we get to see that like he wasn't really a true Mandalorian. He was adopted out of
Yeah.
yes,
war. You know what I mean? So here's someone who's not even born into it and takes the values even more seriously than ones that are. Okay, which proves to his character. How much character he has, and it kind of like says like you can sit there and say, well, why would this bounty hunter be all into Grogu? Because that's the kind of person he is,
Yeah.
right.
not because he's a
And someone
Mandalorian.
saved
Because
him.
let's face it, but right, yeah,
Yeah. He
good.
says, okay, yeah, it's like, whatever this race is, here's a 50-year-old, but here it is like an infant because, they age
Yeah,
slower, whatever the cat,
Yeah,
however you want to describe it. But he's like, this is a
yeah,
kid. This is a kid. You've asked me to bring
yeah,
in a kid who's done nothing in this world other than being
right,
what it is.
yes,
And he's like, yeah, that don't fly with me.
yes,
Every other bounty, they did somebody, they wronged somebody, they did something specific that he
right.
could
There's a point to it.
justify. I'm bringing him in. I'm bringing in warm or I'm bringing you in cold. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here, there's no justification for this, and I'm not
No,
going with
right,
it.
exactly. Right. And I like that, like, and what kind of pisses me off about Star Wars is that at the end of Return of the Jedi, the rebellion wins, at least as far as we know. They
Yeah.
all won, right? It's a happy ending. But then you go into the next, anything next after Return of the Jedi, the Empire's still fucking around. I don't, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're still there. They're
Yeah.
still in
Well, I
power.
mean,
Like, what did you win? What did you win?
that was I think where you missed it because they weren't really in power. It was the first order. It was the first order trying to rebuild the
Well, no, what they
empire,
did, they
and
rebranded. Is what they
the
did. They
republic,
rebranded.
and the republic is trying to.
Yeah.
They're kind of in control. They're trying to slowly, it's in its
Yeah.
infancy at that point. Even though it's now again 20 some years after Return of the Jedi,
Yeah.
which I think kind of makes sense because I mean, if you have a galactic empire that's that powerful, you don't topple it all overnight. You know what I mean? There's still going to be
Right.
sections of that are remain loyal to the emperor and to that ideology. So I kind of got that,
Well,
but
we
I
get
think
that in the
I
Mandalorian.
think it could have been. I think it could have been presented a little bit differently, though.
Right. I mean, we get that in the Mandalorian heavily. That, like, because it's right
Mhm.
after Return of the Jedi, but we get that hey, yeah, Empire is Empire. We got
Yeah.
stormtroopers still walking around. We got all this stuff, and it's like, okay, well, we're still gonna have to like watch our p's and q's, but we're gonna go about our business and try and make money while we're here, which is cool. And like I said, I like that. I like the friends that Mando makes. I like the friends that Mando has. I like that we got Carl Weathers in there for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I mean, because Apollo Creed is
Chubbs.
transcendent. At
Yeah.
that point.
Chubbs from Happy
Yeah,
Gilmore.
right. Action Jacks
Yeah.
Yes.
and Action Jackson, but but we get out of the Mandalorian a really awesome callback and a really awesome fanboy moment where he comes across Boba Fett. Okay. Now, Boba
Mhm.
Fett is what we thought the Mandalorian was. You know what I mean? Like, when you first get into it, until you watch like the first episode, of course. And, we get this, we're like, oh shit, it's Boba Fett. And, what is he going to do? And he has to get his armor back. I'm like, what happened to him? Like, he got eaten in Return of the Jedi, like in the beginning in the movie. Like, what happened to this guy? And we get that. And I think that's cool. And if I'm not mistaken, guys, that actor is the same actor from the Clone Wars.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is.
I believe it's the same. It's Jango Fett,
Jango Fett.
the
Jango
guy who
Yeah.
Fett.
played Jango
Yeah.
Fett. Yeah, it's the guy who played Jango Fett. So I was like, that was really cool. That was a really nice callback to that. Like, imagine that. Like,
Yeah.
that movie was a dozen years ago, and you get called. Hey, yeah, we need you to reprise your role real quick. Okay,
Yeah.
Disney
All
money.
right. Yeah.
Disney money. Thank you. You know what I mean? Like, what a great callback that is. For that. And he plays the role really, really well. And now if you paid attention to everything, all right. So here's the deal. He was a clone. He was a clone that Django had, you know,
It was an
taken out
unaltered
early. So
clone, so it would
yeah,
so he would age
so he can
a normal progression.
normally, and so he can have a son, so he can have a legacy to pass along to, which was a neat thing for us to see that in that sense, because it gives Boba Fett this like really cool background and backstory. And now we see him looking at these other Mandalorians like, he's like, what the fuck, like basically,
Yeah.
and he's kicking ass still. And you're like, oh, this guy still came back from the dead. You're still getting over that. Um, and then we move on and we get the Book of Boba Fett as a series. And I'll tell you, at first I was like, all right, it's cool. Like, they brought Boba Fett up. And Matt, you said this before we went on the air. It's a little slow. You're still
Mhm.
actually watching that now.
Yeah.
Um,
I
um,
think at the point where everybody has told me that it actually starts getting really good. So I'm
yeah,
actually
but
excited now
it
to
is, but
go
it's a
back and
slow
finish the
burn.
series.
It's a slow burn, like Jason and I said, and but it does get better right after like episode 3. It starts to like fall into place. Um, But I too was like, all right, I'll get to it when I get to it. Yeah, it was a cool nod in the Mandalorian. I'm waiting for Mandalorian season 3. But Book of Boba Fett, all right, I'll watch it. I'll watch it eventually, right?
Yeah.
Then fucking Obi-Wan comes out, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to watch Boba Fett real quick because I don't want to. I don't want to watch stuff out of order, and I don't know what's leading into what. And granted, the
Yeah.
series, the Mandalorian and Boba Fett are together. Obi-Wan is not. So you kind of like you could watch Obi-Wan by itself, and you're like, all right, it's cool. But like I was like, all right,
There's
let me
no
watch.
tie-in.
There's no tie-in, right? So I said, let me jump into Boba Fett, and I started, and I got into it, and I'm like, you know what? After a couple episodes, it caught me. I was like, you get to see like it takes place. It starts right after that early scene in Return of the Jedi,
Yeah.
where
He's still in
Boba
the
Fett,
belly of the Sarlacc.
yeah, and he comes out and he gets himself out in true dog to bounty hunter fashion, and you're like that. This starts the story in his it was like the Jawas take his armor
Yeah.
because he's like laying there half dead in the sand, and then he gets picked up by the sand people, the Tusken Raiders, and you get this really cool scenario where I mean, he has skills already because he's
Hmm.
Boba Fett. He fucking caught Han Solo, and stuff like that. But he has skills, but then he gets betrothed, not betrothed, but per se, but like he gets really like inducted into the Tusken Raiders. Like they show that he's someone to respect, and he shows them respect back. And so we're seeing a different side to the Raiders because our if you go back to like New Hope, that's really where
Yeah.
we see them. Like they're just these wild guys. It's like
Yeah.
Mm.
Matt's wife when she's in the kitchen and she can't figure out what to make for dinner and stuff like this, you know, and
She's gonna kill you when she sees
she
this.
will. She'll watch us, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a good thing you live a few thousand miles away. It's very good.
Yeah.
But like we're getting a different side to these Tusken Raiders, and we're showing that like everybody in there, it's not just like comic relief. It's not just like, oh, off shot this on that one. Like they have their own per se religious uh honorable system, uh
Mm.
much
Like a
like the Native
creed.
Americans. Yeah, like a creed. I kind of looked at them as like Native Americans in a sense.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah.
um Early Native
And they
Americans,
and they were
like
and they were kind of even set up like that as you learn,
yeah,
that they had, they were almost kind of like forced out of
yes,
their normal area, and they were displaced, and now they're living out in the Dune Sea, and they're, you know, they used to they prospered at one point, and so I mean it
right.
was he said it kind of ties in with that where they are
Yeah,
a very misunderstood people.
yeah, yeah. And much like our Native Americans, it's like they were tribes. They had their own honor. They weren't these animalistic things, but they were products of their situation, if
Yeah.
we could say that. And they had to scavenge to survive, and they had to do what they had to do to survive because, like you said, they were displaced. And we get in Book of Boba Fett, like there's these other raiders that are basically bullies in a sense, and they're
Hmm.
just taken from them, and they're like, oh, they basically are like, we just deal with it in a sense. And Boba's like, well, fuck that, we're not gonna
Yeah.
Yeah.
do that.
Let me teach you guys how to kick ass.
You taught me. You're teaching me some skills, so I'm going to teach you
Yeah.
some. You guys have skills and you're not using them. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
let's put this all together now and have that final exam basically. And he gets them and then once again spoilers. Uh, that doesn't pan out too well
Hmm.
for Bobo
Yeah.
and that tribe of Tusken Raiders, but um, it gives Boba, I think, a little bit more inspiration, and it gives
Hmm.
Boba a nudge to say, you know what, if you were thinking about just saying whatever, now's not the time to do it. So he's now inspired by the loss of these people who really showed him a different way, you know, and enlightened him is the best way to say enlightened him. Um, and it's funny to say that the Tuscans did this, but the Tuscans enlightened Boba Fett and gave him this new ideology to think, how to think, and how to be, you know, and you know, you felt the sadness when
Yeah.
he sees that, like, you know, eventually they were destroyed and stuff like that. At least that tribe, you know, of course, and it moves him on to say, well, now I'm going to do what I'm going to do. The hell with it. Now all bets are off, and Boba Fett's going to take over. You know, Jabba's no more. You know, the twins can come around because we see that he talks to the Jabba's family. He has the brother and the sister. Uh, you know, and it's like he's not going to waver. He's not going to like do. He has diplomatic skills, which is kind of cool. You know, what I mean, he's not just a rough and tough guy. He knows how to engage, and he
Yeah.
knows how to negotiate with these other people, but with the understanding that, like, hey, you know, if these don't go well, I'll kill you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Option B is up on the table. I'm just want to
Yeah.
do
Right.
something else. I want to do
We'll go
something
from
nicer.
peaceful negotiation to aggressive
Yeah,
negotiation, and you don't
yeah,
want to be on the end of that.
yeah. Whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm good either way.
Mhm.
It's like, you know, that's what you get from. I could go either way. I'm cool with that. You know, whatever one you like. You know, I just want to put them all out there, and you guys choose
Mhm.
like a buffet. You know, that
Yeah.
type of thing. And so we get like some really cool characters. We get the return of my love, Ming Na Wen, as like his protege.
I think she was
And
the star of the series, honestly, because
she actually,
everything,
yeah, all bets aside, she actually did like steal a lot of scenes. She did.
yeah, everything that like, because Boba Fett kind of got soft, just like you were saying,
Yeah.
he became a little more human. But
Yes.
she, on the other hand, was the badass. You know what I mean?
Yes.
She was doing the things that I expected Boba Fett to be doing
Right.
when before the series was aired.
Yeah, and it's funny because like even she was kind of like looking at him sideways in some cases
Yeah,
to be like, you know, like I'll do this, fuck it, you know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
type of
yeah,
thing. And
yeah. Stop being a
it's
pussy, man. I'm
stop being a pussy, let's do this. Yeah, right,
right.
exactly. You know, he's like, oh, just wait, you know.
Yeah,
Um, the funny thing about that dynamic too is that she was really good for him because she not only was just like the physical backup, you know, for Boba Fett, but she was also the like, you know, yeah, Boba Fett's getting soft, but I'm the reminder that
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
This universe
shit's
is
gonna
still ugly.
yeah,
You
and
know.
shit's gonna
Yeah.
happen, and guess
Right.
what? This is what we are capable of. You know,
Yeah.
Boba Fett's still capable of it, but now I'm a tool of Boba Fett in a
It's
sense.
almost,
You
and
know,
again, because because you're getting into the whole gangster, with the the huts and everything else. It is almost,
yes,
he becomes like kind of like that street level enforcer that works his way up to being the don of the family.
yes,
So it's
yes,
like, I got here because I'm a badass, but
yes.
now I got somebody down here to get their hands dirty. I just don't get my hands dirty anymore. Kind of a vibe.
Right.
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 And he kind of
That's a good
realized
way to
that
look at
in a
it. Yeah.
sense. Yeah, and he did kind of realize that. Like he's like and but the good thing you got to see from him is that he wanted to be fair. And what he realized, and this is what made him a really good businessman, was that there's money to be made and we don't have to necessarily get our hands dirty per se. We can this can be very glorious in a sense. I can run this shit and I can be treat them fairly and they're going to be able to give me like they're going to be able to give me the respect I need and things will flow, things will just be able to you know you know prosper and I don't have to fight for it in a sense. And I think that's a big thing too for him is that like yeah, you could be a tyrant like Jabba was and you could rule in fear. but there's always going to be somebody who wants to fight back. But if
Yeah.
you treat them with respect, they're not going to want to fight back. They're going to be cool with it. And then everybody gets their just desserts at that point. And
Mhm.
and I saw that from, and it was like he tries to go with the other uh, gang leaders in a sense. Um, and you said it really was like a mafia movie in a sense. It really was like a Godfather type of movie. Um, but they didn't see his vision totally. They were all very selfish.
Yeah.
And he was like, listen, there's enough for everybody. And being selfish, it taught the lesson that being selfish will devour what you have. Whereas if you're not selfish, there's plenty for everyone and you'll
Yeah.
always flourish. So it's a very neat scenario that you get out of that. Like as a writer standpoint, that's where I was getting from it. Like, hey, like this is really, really, I see where they're going with this. And I like, that they got this and that's cool. Um, Now, Matt, you're still watching, so you have that to
Yeah.
look forward to.
Yeah.
Hey, I said,
Matt,
hey,
did you get,
it's a good synopsis, which again,
Yeah.
it like I said, it's enough spoiler that now it's like, hey, I am going to go back and I want to watch it because I want to see how it all plays out. It's
Yeah.
almost kind of like, if anything, if I can kind of equate it to,
Yeah.
we were talking about the prequel trilogy where it was like
Yeah.
we knew what was going to happen,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but we watched it because we want to see exactly how it happened. We
Right.
know how this ends, but we want to see how we got there.
Yeah. 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 And that's the key too. When you have enough information to know that there's a story before,
Mm-hmm.
but not enough information for you to know the story, that's
Yeah,
when a prequel works. If you
very
know,
true.
if you know the Cliff Notes version of the prequel, then you really don't need the prequel, in my eyes, at least.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, that's why for me, Black Widow failed in my eyes. To me, was because and a lot it had a lot to do with like when they released it and stuff like that because of COVID, of course. And in the succession of how her character laid out in Endgame, like she passes away, and
yeah,
in Endgame we're like, all right, well she's already dead. I know what's going to happen. I really don't now. I don't really give a shit about what happened in this time
yeah,
frame. You know what I mean? That type of thing. If she was still alive, I could have been into it. But once again, I knew enough to say, well, this, and this happened. Now you're
yeah,
just like filling in blanks, does and ands and periods and commas. At that point, like at that point, it's not a movie to me. Um, so to your credit, and what you're saying, you know enough to say, I know something happened that got me here, but now I want to see what that was and why this character and what you will find out. And Jason, I think you'll agree with this, is that these keep in mind, go back to New Hope, go back to Empire Strikes Back, go back to Return of the Jedi. Boba Fett, was like this like cool 13-second character
right.
that we
yeah,
saw, right? We get a little bit more into him in uh, Revenge of the Sith, I mean, the Clone Wars, like how he was created and where he came from.
Yeah.
Um, but like we're like 13, 14 seconds. That's all we got of this guy. And then
Yeah.
you get
mhm,
this Boba Fett series, and you're like, now I'm into Boba Fett. Now I
Right.
know Boba Fett, and now I can now look at him and say, "Yo, that's the fucking man." You know what I mean? In a
Yeah.
sense, because like I couldn't do that before. It was
Right.
aesthetically cool. It's like liking a football team for their helmet.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
But you
yeah.
don't know anything about football.
It's
You know what I
it's
mean?
like
That's
all
basically
I
what it
all I
was.
know about this guy truly from the original trilogy is
Yeah,
when Vader looks at him and no disintegrations, and it's like going, oh,
Yeah.
this guy's known for disintegrating people. Yeah, this is awesome. He just, I don't care, boom, you're gone. But it's like, but that's what evoked that, and for liking the character. It's like he's
Yeah.
mysterious.
yeah,
He apparently likes to disintegrate a lot of people. That's what he's
yes,
known for. He's got to be the
yes,
most badass MFer in the damn universe, next to damn, next to Darth Vader himself.
Right.
But,
And that line fueled a fan theory that Boba Fett was the one who killed Aunt Beru and Uncle Lars.
Yes.
Because they were disintegrated. I mean, they were just they were burnt skeletons when Luke came
Yeah.
back and found them. So who knows?
And then we're as kids, because you look at these helmets and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, he must be Darth Vader's other kid. You're like, you don't know
Yeah.
what's going
Yeah.
on, that type of thing. But such a cool thing. But now moving on to the third series, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, does not relate necessarily to Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett, okay? Because now we're talking about timeline-wise, where Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett are right after Return of the Jedi. Obi-Wan Kenobi is right after what's the name?
Revenge of the Sith and before A New Hope.
And before New
Rogue
Hope, yeah.
One. Rogue One.
Before Rogue One, yes. So it's only about 10 years or so since
I think that's it, because I know Obi-Wan tells Leia at one point, you're only 10 years old, but you won't always be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We get some really great stuff. We get Owen and Aunt Rue. We get obviously we get our our Ben Kenobi, which is cool. We get a lot of backstory, and here surprisingly, we get a lot of Darth Vader, which I think was really, really cool.
Yeah.
We get a lot of great we get a lot of great scenes with Darth Vader, and we get a lot more, because it's like at the end of Revenge of the Sith, you're like, man, Anakin must be just really pissed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then we get that personified to say, yeah, I am really pissed, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where we are getting like this, it's a continuation. It's almost like the next day, type of thing, which is not, it's like 10 years later, but one of those things where, we're seeing a broken Ben. Ben's really upset about Anakin.
Yeah.
And we get that at the end of Revenge of the Sith. But he's really tore up about it. And it really it destroyed him in a sense. Where he didn't want to be. And we're in a world now where it's 10 years later. The Sith are moving forward with what they did and what they were doing.
Yeah, they're as was mentioned in A New Hope, they're hunting down the remaining Jedi that somehow escaped Order 66 and any other, as we find out, other Force sensitive family. They're looking for anybody who's Force sensitive and wiping them out.
Yeah, they're like, we're not going to have this shit, So the bad guys have been winning for a while, and they were just moving forward. And Ben was a broken down guy, and you get where Owen, where he was more than happy to help when Luke was a baby. Now it's like he realized not only that he realized the stakes, but now Luke is his baby, in a sense. And now it's taken on a different meaning. He's like, I don't want you coming around here. I don't want you, I understand what my purpose was, but my purpose is basically changed because this is my kid. He doesn't say this, but I'm saying this is your perception. Yeah. And it's one of those things where you're like, all right, so now that kind of changed the game a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like,
and we also see that, Obi-Wan at this point, with the Empire and, the Inquisitors and, Vader, hunting down the Jedi, he's got to be so careful with how he uses his Force powers and taps into the Force, that we're seeing that some of his Force abilities are lessening.
Yeah.
His Force abilities are starting to atrophy in a way. You know.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that was all his guilt, all his like he
Yes.
felt failure,
Yeah.
and that's why not to jump it too far ahead into the series, but
Yeah.
when Anakin / Vader says, "You didn't kill Anakin, I did,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
that really brought that whole Force energy back into him. All the guilt left, and the Force came
Yes.
Yeah.
in. I just thought it was like beautiful writing.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Well, in a sense, though, too.
And the visual with that line too was
Oh yeah,
great.
oh
Because even
yeah,
too,
Oh yeah.
because the way that was lit again, and for those of you who haven't finished the series, I apologize, but with
Yeah.
having his face lit by both having by Kenobi's saber and his saber, and having
yeah,
that combination of the red and the blue, and then when he finally says you didn't kill him, I did, all you see is the red from his saber, and it's like
Yeah.
yeah.
it's just like anything that
Yeah.
was
Anakin's
Anakin
gone.
is just gone.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
over. Anakin's not here, man.
And the
Yeah.
whole thing with the Anakin's actual voice and Darth Vader's voice kind of
Yeah, kind
laying
of
over each other in
intermingling.
there
Yeah,
was
Yes. Yes.
man,
excellent.
chills, man. It was
It was
awesome.
great. It really was great. And you know what you say, like it turned. I mean, grant the force is in them, and they talk about microbial things and blah blah blah, whatever. But if you go back to New Hope, when Luke is now training on the Millennium Falcon
Yeah,
with Ben,
Mhm.
um, he had to train himself. He had to train his mind. He had to like believe in it.
yeah,
And that's what it came down to. It came down to belief, and it came down to uh, Ben in this section, like he almost like no longer believed in it anymore. And I
yeah.
think that was the main reason why
Mhm.
his powers were fading,
Mhm.
because he wasn't faithful to the force anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
And then
you
once he
know,
taps into it, though, man, I'll again. Not I don't want to say I'm not going to say exactly, but what happens when he really taps back into the Force? That
yes.
was just amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Basically, like we were talking before, Jason. I was that same thing, like yeah, because it's like holy crap,
yeah, yeah,
Kenobi. Where it's again, it's like it was mentioned it several times where it's Kenobi's
Yes.
just not any Jedi, and then you see that
Yes.
it's like going yeah, Kenobi is not just any Jedi. He is
No.
probably the most badass Jedi that you have ever
Mm.
seen, ever. You know,
And you thought it was Anakin, but it wasn't.
yeah,
In a sense, you
yeah.
really. But now let's talk about some of the semantics in that. We get some flashbacks where
Mm-hmm.
he's remembering training with Anakin, and we
Mm-hmm.
get we get an older uh, what's his name,
Hayden
Hayden
Christensen.
Christensen.
Hayden Christensen, and I was like, dude, you couldn't even de-age Hayden Christensen a little bit, like,
Although actually, I think that worked though because
do you?
he doesn't look that much older.
He
But you know
doesn't look
what?
that, but he does
When
though, dude. I
but
caught it. I was like, this
I
man
know,
is
but the
about
thing I thought
over
it
20 years.
worked better in this in because he was still very young. I mean, he was like
Yeah, yeah,
just out of high school when he did, um, uh, you know, uh,
yeah,
Attack of the Clones
Attack of
and
the
Revenge of
Clones.
the Sith.
yeah, yeah.
So I think just his general appearance worked better for his character overall. You know,
But he looked older than
because
he did in Revenge
yeah,
of the
I know,
Sith.
but I think it worked better just for the simple fact that I think it was one of the biggest problems everybody had, even with some of those prequel trilogies, was how young he looked, and he kind of seemed like a bratty teenager, which he kind of was.
He
But
Yeah,
was a
I think it
dick.
kind of really, I think it
Let's
really kind of
face it.
helped. I
Let's
think it really
face it.
helped kind of show almost his face matched his like abilities,
The
kind of
ultimate
a thing.
failure. The
I think it kind of
ultimate
worked. I
failure
liked it.
was Anakin.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. And let's reverse this a little bit. We see Anakin as a young child. He's in slavery. His
Mm-hmm.
mom's in slavery at least, and eventually he's going to be too. But um, he's happy. He's like a little mechanic. He's got all this life in him. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And what does the Jedi do with every Jedi? They take the child away from their family,
Mm-hmm.
isolate them to make them a Jedi, right?
Mm-hmm.
And What happens when we take Anakin away from his mom, who's in slavery still, and make him a Jedi? He turns into Hayden fucking Christensen. And that guy is a dick in his movies. Let's face it. My daughter was watching. My daughter was rewatching just the other day, like literally just 2 days ago. And she said, "Yo, he's a creeper." I said, "Who are you talking about?" And she said, "Anakin Skywalker." Like the conversations he's having with Padme, right? I I dream about you and I can't not be close to you and blah blah. Like this is what happens right before the girl gets like put in a basement and is tied up and then eventually is dead. You know what I mean? Like this is like very creepy shit. She's like, "Yeah, Darth
Yeah.
Creeper." I said,
This
"Yeah,
is
he
this is
really is
the
like
beginning of
Darth
a Criminal
Creeper."
Minds episode. You know?
No, I said, "Yeah." No, she said, "You know how mommy watches those ID shows where it says there were signs?" She goes, "Yeah, there were signs right here." And she said, and my daughter goes, "And this dumb bitch is falling for it."
Yeah,
I
yeah,
said,
yeah, yeah.
I know. I said, but like he really when you rewatch it, rewatch Clone Wars, right? Rewatch it,
Attack of the Clones. Yeah.
Attack of the Clones, and then like you just watch those scenes with him and Padme, and you're like, wow, is this dude a creeper? Like he
Yeah.
really is a creeper.
She's like,
And
she goes, "My Annie, have you grown?" And he's like, "So have you, far more beautiful." You know, and he's
yeah,
just,
bag it up.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And I think there's what like a 5 year difference between them,
yeah,
probably.
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
So
Yeah.
it's not terrible. Like I had to explain that to my daughter too. She's like, "Isn't she like 20 years older than him?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "No." She's a kid too, but she's a
yeah.
little
She
older
was
than him.
queen at 14.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
It's
but
like
like,
it's somewhere around like that 6 year range. You know, maybe a little bit more. But
but my she goes, "Hey, it's Darth Creeper right here," and then and that breathing is not the aspiratus. That's like him being a creeper on the phone. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, yeah, like
yeah,
I have a whole new light on Darth Vader at this point because I'm like, yeah, he's a creeper. Like,
yeah,
but like he really was. Anakin was a dick, and he was a selfish prick, and
yeah.
he really did not get it at all. There
yeah.
was really nothing when you think about it. We're making jokes and stuff like that, but there really, when you look back at it, there really was nothing redeemable about him. He
Yeah.
was the making of an evil person from the moment he became a Jedi.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what too, and
You
I
know,
and I s- and I read a very interesting fan theory because when he's having that conversation with Palpatine
yes,
about Darth Plagueis, and said that he even had the ability to influence midichlorians to create life.
yeah,
But Shmi Skywalker saying there was no father, you know,
right,
Yeah.
and it's like the fan theory is Plagueis actually created him.
It's actually it's not a fan theory anymore. That there's a comic book that they show Shmi in the desert, and the Emperor, Palpatine, had his
Yeah.
arms around her and was
Oh, okay,
manipulating
cool,
her womb. So actually, Palpatine created Anakin.
cool.
So
interesting.
yeah, so when he says, "Hey, we're going to watch your career with with great interest," or something like that in episode 1, he knew exactly who that
Who it
was.
was?
Yeah.
And that's why he's
Awesome,
the chosen one.
awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why he's the chosen one.
And he's literally made of midichlorians.
Yeah,
So there is no pure
And
force carrier.
think
yeah.
about this for a second. In Revenge of the Sith, right at the end, when he gets defeated by Obi-Wan, and he goes, "You were the chosen one. You were my brother." It's like, dude, guess what? He really still is the chosen one.
Yeah.
Not in the way you thought, not in the
Right.
Yeah,
way you were told, but he is the chosen one, just not in the way you thought.
Yeah.
yeah.
Darth
And
Creeper lives.
it really was, again with that original trilogy
Yeah,
that he did bring balance to the Force by fathering Luke and Leia. You know, he
yeah,
returned that balance to the Force. It just wasn't going to be for until another generation.
right, 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 right,
Right.
right. It had to play out. In other words, it had to play
Right.
out, and it just shows that this entire story was destiny in a
Mhm.
sense. It was destined to be. This was what was going to happen, that type of thing. But like you said, we get this tremendous arc. The girl that played, young Leia. How
Mhm.
awesome was she? She
Oh,
was
she's
She was
great.
cool.
she
She
was
was
such a
great.
great little actress.
Hmm.
So adorable, and she really was Leia.
Yeah.
I don't know if they made her watch the movies to see how Leia was in the movies or something like that. But man, did
But
she
yeah,
hit that on the nail on the
yeah.
head? How
It's
great
like
was that?
you believed
Yeah,
every bit that girl grows up to be Princess Leia. You
exactly,
know,
exactly.
that
We
balance
get
of compassion, yet fierceness and and strength and
yeah,
resolve. Just awesome.
we get a glimpse of Luke. Not a big glimpse of Luke because he really
Hmm.
wasn't a big part of this story
Yeah.
in a
Yeah,
sense.
which I thought
Uh,
was cool. I didn't
Think
want
about the
anything
dynamic.
forced.
But go back to New Hope for a second. Think about the
Yeah,
dynamic. Princess Leia is like right in the middle of the war.
Yeah.
Okay, as
yeah,
a young adult, and she knows to call on Obi Wan and stuff like that. And meanwhile, Luke is this fucking farm boy, oblivious
Hmm.
to the world, aside from, dare I say, fanboy stories that he hears from here and there. But they're so far and far between. They're like bedtime stories to him.
Yeah.
In a
yeah,
sense. So they were legit in two different worlds. She was right in the middle of it, and he was kept from it.
yeah,
In a sense. So you get that, which was really really cool, and you get that in that whole lead up to, like, Obi-Wan gets to meet Luke at the
Yeah.
very end, which is kind of cool, and just says, "Hey, how are
Yeah.
you?" Blah blah blah, and Luke says, "Oh, farm boy."
Yeah.
He's like this little dopey kid.
and there
which
was
is
a,
which
there
is
was,
good because because Luke knows who he is,
Yes,
and
yeah,
he's introduced to him as Ben Kenobi, um,
yes.
and the fact that it's
Ben's this hermit.
so it's like yeah,
Yeah,
this old hermit, so he kind of knows of existence, and when he hears Obi-Wan's like, I wonder if he means old Ben, and he's like, yeah,
right,
no, and
and he knows
Uncle's like,
that
no,
Ben's not going to be around because Ben's a hermit in the hills.
yeah,
You're not going to see Ben a lot, and
yeah,
there's a reason for it. He's not just some guy. Why did that guy drop around and never come back? Oh, because he's a hermit. You get that, like, that kind of tied in New Hope in those
you
couple
yeah,
lines, and I think that
yeah,
is great writing because it's such a
hmm,
minuscule line in New
yeah,
Hope. We all remember the line because
yeah,
I think we
yeah,
watched Star Wars ad nauseum, of course. But like, we all remember that. But it was
hmm,
like, wow, think about that for a second. What a bounce back to one particular line in a movie made in 1978. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
That was really really cool, and I thought that was neat too. But like you said, we get this great redemption for Ben
hmm,
in this movie. We get a good, I think we get a good closure on the Anakin Darth Vader storyline
yeah,
yeah,
to start Darth Vader. You know that I think I we really didn't get the closing in Revenge of the Sith. You kind of thought we did, but we didn't
yeah,
because we're like, man, he's got to be pissed. And now we get like the
hmm,
final confrontation between those two, and it's like, because where does the love for Anakin stop and the hatred for Darth begin? You know what I mean? Because you can't do both.
yeah,
You can't do
right,
both, and we get that in this, where it's like, I can mourn my brother, but now you're my enemy, and now
yeah.
they're not the same person anymore.
I also feel that again too with the way that battle played out between them,
Yes,
it shows that their Vader does have his weaknesses.
yes,
If the whole point, the key to defeating Vader is exploiting his weaknesses, finding out what
yes,
they are, and exploiting them, which Ben does a great job of.
right,
But also, it kind of sets up for their duel in A New Hope,
right,
where
right,
it shows that it's like, what, Ben, even at his age,
yes,
probably could have done more
yeah,
in that scene, but he knew the only way he was not getting out of there.
right.
yes,
One way or
He knew
another,
the
he
exactly,
end
was
game.
not getting out of there. He knew he
right,
probably at that point, because he was so much older, and again, his powers had probably waned a little bit since that last meeting.
right.
he's keeping Vader occupied so everybody else can escape. And
Yes,
knowing
yes.
that I'm going to sacrifice myself so I can become one with the Force, because that's the only way I'm getting off this Death Star, to be able to train Luke.
Right.
You know,
And how about that? We
it
get to
set
see
that
the
up
plan.
really
We get
good.
to see the plans for the Death Star, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
We get to see those plans being sold.
Yeah.
In one little scene, which is kind of cool. But
Yeah.
like you said, we get to see like not only there's twofold in this. Like I'm gonna hold them off so this way, and I'm gonna see what Vader's weaknesses are. And Vader's weakness is his hatred.
Yeah.
That's Vader's weakness. He's
Yeah.
too his hatred takes over his common sense, and
Yeah.
that's where his problem lies.
As Ben
Yeah.
says, he says during that training sequence,
Yeah.
your desire for victory,
Yes.
overpowers your judgment.
Yes.
I forget exactly how he worded it.
But you're right, and we see examples of that from Vader throughout the
Mhm.
series,
Yeah.
where it's like, you know what? If you would have did this, you would have did that. You probably would have got this. You probably would have got that.
Mhm.
But you see how being power hungry, it's like, oh, he gets all
Yeah.
pissy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Vader doesn't have the patience for a siege.
Yeah.
Now I love these Disney Plus series. We're going to be ending this show now. We're just a little bit over an hour. Um, I I love these series. I find them to be better than the movies that we've gotten. I would like to see more of these series. Not only the ones we have, like Book of Boba Fett. I don't need another one. I don't think I need another season of
Yeah,
that per se.
same.
I think I was just let's get his story out. I definitely need more Mandalorian. Obi-Wan, I think there's a lot there
Mm-hmm.
that we can go into. I would love to see more Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because let's face it, too. Vader was the big bad, but we had no reason why Vader was the big bad other than what people were saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would like to see Vader's rise in the Empire, in
Yeah.
a sense, and that type of thing, and
Yeah.
that and go that route. But yeah, there's a lot down the pike. There's a lot more Star Wars to come. There's more movies
Yeah.
coming, of course, too. Just hopefully they'll capture that same fun
Yeah.
that we're getting out of
And
these shows and stuff like that.
I know prior to us doing this, and we were discussing, doing this episode, there was one thing I had shared with the group that I know that we wanted to kind of briefly bring up. But and again, I wish I could credit this to somebody, but it's just something I found randomly across Facebook and
Yeah.
whatever. But somebody had posted this thing, and I'll just read it here. It says, "I want a Lando Calrissian TV series in which each
Yes.
episode starts out with Billy D. Williams playing cards in a dive cantina with some of the finest scum and villainy before telling a story, and then Donald Glover, who played him in Solo, takes over as
Right.
young Lando enacting the story, occasionally interrupted by people at the table saying it didn't go that way or Billy is embellishing. Have Billy D
Yeah.
be the narrator. I think that'd be kind of cool. That'd be
I
kind of
would
cool
love
to
that.
see, like a
Absolutely awesome.
Lando,
I
you
would
know,
love that.
because
I
that
would
is
love
that.
that is a character that you could do so much with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You
it's
know.
cheesy, but I would also love a Han Solo series.
Yeah. There was
Yeah.
a lot left
I don't think
open
the
at the
yeah,
end
I
of
don't think
Solo.
yeah, I don't think the
Yeah.
movie did him justice.
Yeah.
The movie was a fun movie. It wasn't a great movie.
No.
You know what I mean? It only
No.
all the movie did was it kind of jumped on 3 taglines from New Hope.
Mhm.
It's all it really did. You
Yeah.
know, the Kessel Run, how I got the Millennium Falcon. That's it. That's really what it jumped on,
Yeah.
and the kind of person he is. I want to see more adventures of Han Solo.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing.
But I think when they first did it, I think they envisioned a trilogy.
Yeah.
And they had so much trouble getting that movie made. They lost a director.
Yes.
There were writing issues and all kinds of stuff and reshoots. So it was kind of sloppy. But the way
Yes.
they left it open at the end, it was like the birth of Crimson Dawn. This cartel, if
Yes.
you will, that needed more story told and stuff like that. And Darth Maul was back, and people who didn't watch the Clone Wars had no idea how Darth Maul is even in that.
Exactly.
There was just so much that was left unanswered.
Yeah.
And I think even the Lando series might be able to tie some of that together. I
Yeah.
thought some was going to come out in Boba Fett, but it
Yeah.
didn't. But
It didn't.
uh,
But I think it's an untouched character, and I think it's a character that we really could use a lot about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's fun.
Um,
Because there, I mean, there's almost like no real rules for how that series could go. That could
No,
be a
anything.
great mix of action, adventure, comedy. It's
Yeah.
Mhm.
he's a fun. He is just literally Lando Calrissian is a fun character,
Fun
and
character.
you could
It's
do a
exactly
lot with
right.
him.
It's
Yeah,
exactly right. He's Han Solo to a 10th degree
yeah.
in a
He's like a
sense.
pimp. He's
He's
like
a
if Han
pimp.
It's so
Solo's
much
a pimp.
cooler. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's a Star Wars pimp.
yeah,
I mean,
Guys,
he could rock a cape. You know what I mean? Like who
he
could pull a
definitely can
cape
rock
off?
a
You know?
cape.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
guys, we had a great time today. It was great discussing these shows. Check them out on Disney Plus. The shows are on there. They're fantastic. I totally recommend them. These guys recommend them as well. It's great watching. It really is great watching, and they're not large amounts. They're only 6, 7 episodes in a case, so it's not a lot of time
Yeah.
spent watching stuff. So you can get through these series, and you'll get some what I believe to be slightly better than what we're getting out of the movies
Yeah.
per se.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I think at this point, if we get more Star Wars movies, we need more just stories in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I think so. If they take a nod from what they've done with these series, the
Mhm.
movies, I think will be real fun because I think you know what the the storyline needs to end
Yeah,
because the storylines it's like 30 years later it's still happening. It's like stop. I
yeah,
don't need to know
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do something else. Let's see.
Leave
There's
that
other
leave that
wars.
ending where it was, because that was
Yeah,
I will say that was one great ending to Rise of Skywalker, where it's and we
yeah.
even get a kind of a nod to ending
Excuse
of
me.
Rise of Skywalker in Obi-Wan
Yeah,
Kenobi, where it's
yeah,
like hey, she was born a Palpatine, but she's chosen to identify
yeah,
as a Skywalker.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Exactly, exactly. And you know what? Like I said, I think we have an opportunity to now create new.
yes.
You
Let's
know,
let's let's
not
explore the
not
rest of the
not continue
universe.
on, but create new. I think we
Yeah,
close that book.
yeah.
Let's start a new book.
Let's
I
explore
just
the
think,
rest of the Star Wars universe because there's a
guys,
lot to it.
guys, Cape's not included. It's one of our premier shows here on the DJB Productions Network. You see the link right there below. Go to that link, subscribe to the channel if you like what you're saying. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Make sure you leave some comments and share the channel across the board. If you go on Facebook, you can look up Capes Not Included. You can like the Facebook page right on there. We do a lot of like cool like postings of stuff like when Matt put up there with that fan stuff. Matt's going to have that up there on the Capes Not Included page and other stuff like that. So
Mhm.
check that out on Facebook. It's Capes Not Included. But once again, DJB Productions Network. For Jason Leach, for Matt Sonner, my name is Danny J. Until next time, keep your cape in the wind and your eyes to the stars. Have a great day, everybody.